Hello and welcome to Insights from Elsewhere. My name is Cynthia Portugal and I'm Brazilian and I live in São Paulo, Brazil. I'm the growth director for Insight Platforms. Insight Platforms is an online media business that helps researchers find new tools, learn how to use them, and see what's next coming. We host a directory for we run conferences and we create content online. It has the biggest global audience in the research industry. And we created this podcast to go beyond the big research markets of North America and Western Europe. We want to understand how researchers all over the world, specifically Latin, Asia, and Africa, how they are doing research, what are the challenges they have for inserting research technology in their field, and what they expect about AI and the future of research. Today, I'm going to talk to Sami Wong. She's the founder of 3Drips Psychology, Research, and Consultancy. She's based in Beijing, China. Sami has over 20 years of experience working as a qualitative, in depth psychological researcher, and she also works in the field of clinical psychology too. She has an extensive experience presenting various conferences of the area of research, like ESOMAR, Pol 360, etc. Welcome to the Insights from Elsewhere podcast, Sami. It's a pleasure to have you with me today.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Cynthia. I'm so happy here to be here today. And hello from China.
Hello from Brazil.
Yes.
Tell me about your journey in market research. How did you end up here?
Mm, I have been in this industry for over 20 years, just like how you described it in my introduction. I started really young. Actually, I started my first research job back in Melbourne, Australia.
Really?
And I was a psychology major student and was looking for something psychology related. Fortunately enough, I met two German colleagues, and they were very, very involved in using psychological understanding to understand consumer psychology. So that's how I get all started. And because of one little insight that I share with the person who interviewed me about about the painting, the painting industry, about the dog and stuff. And then he decided on site that he will hire me. And then I start my role the next day. So that's how I got started. But then about 11 years ago, I moved back to Beijing. And that's where I started the Asia Pacific market research. And we trying to apply a lot of psychological understanding into understanding the Chinese consumer psychic. Because as you know, it's very specific and China is huge. And I think that's why we are here today to talk about what to do in China if you ever want to consider or conducting any kind of qualitative research studies.
Yes, that's it. Of course. That's what everyone wants to know. When we talked the first time, I was really surprised to hear a lot of the things you were saying. So I think people will be really surprised too. So, talking about China, what's unique there that affects the area of research?
Mm. China is a huge nation. So when people start talking about China, they just assume that one culture and then that applies to different cities or different provinces. We have many, many provinces, meaning that we have people actually speaking different dialects. And then when we compare to the northern part of China, the culture can be radically different compared to the southern part of China. And they even speak different language, to be very honest. So that is why when we start talking about China, we need to be very specified which part of China we are interested in. And that usually set the confusion of our international client. And they would say, what are you talking about? I just thought that we want to understand about China. So yes, I think that's where we start sharing our very experienced understanding of the market and also the methodology. So for instance, in the southern part of China, the main speaking language is actually Cantonese. it can sound so different, like French to Chinese.
Yes. So
And then when we are in Beijing, we speak like a Mandarin, but with a bit of a Beijinger accent. But when you actually go to Shanghai, then people speak Shanghainese that can be very, very different from Cantonese and Mandarin as well. And each linguistic, there is its own culture and understanding and use very different terminology. So that's where we start to educate our international client about domestic cultural differences.
yes, because we are used when you do a global project to treat each country as one whole thing, right? So I imagine
Mm,
treating like China as one massive thing wouldn't work because one strategy wouldn't fit the whole country because it's a different dialect, a different culture, everything different. It's not like, for example, in Brazil, we do have
mm,
different cultures in the regions, but still it's the same language. You might have like changes in one word or another word, but you can understand everyone. So it's a big challenge thinking about global projects because still it's a lot of people. And I would assume for
mm.
markets, it's a huge opportunity to go into China with products, with services, anything new. But what are the challenges that foreign companies face when trying to do like global projects and insert in China?
Mm. Actually, I think other than the language, right, I would like to address one point too. It's regarding the different tiers of cities. Meaning that because of China, we have the mega super world first tier city, and that will be Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and also with Guangzhou. Okay. So it's a well spread of the south and the north. And then we have the listed of the second tier city and then the third tier city. And they have different kind of lifestyle, meaning that their spending power is very different and their lifestyle can be rather different from one another. So other than the dialect and the language, you also have the different tier of differences between all these cities. So that's one and two major differences when we start to educate our client. And coming back to your question regarding what is the most challenging thing for the HQ to enter into the Chinese market is that there is always a misunderstanding. And I would say it's an overconfidence from the international brand that whatever that works in the West will always work in China.
Yes.
That's not necessarily the truth because in so many ways they need to really understand how Chinese people live on a daily basis. For instance, if we are looking at the home appliances brand, in the West, we live in a larger apartment or a house that is over 200 or 300 square meters. But actually in China, most of the people, they live in like the really small flat. So that will be around maybe 100 square meter and you have three generations in the same household, meaning that the grandchild, the parents, and the grandparents. So one household and it has 3 to 4 people, even sometimes up to 5 people, with only 2 or 3 bedrooms. So if whatever sells popularly in overseas, with all these large home appliances, it may not really work in China because we simply don't have the space to put it aside.
Yes.
So you see, this needs a lot of investigation and a lot of understanding about how Chinese people live. Mm.
So that's
And
amazing.
mm,
And thinking about opportunities, because we've seen a lot of challenges, but I would assume there are a lot of opportunities that people are not getting, foreign companies are not getting when looking into China. What are the opportunities you see in your market?
what I notice about all these studies that we have done before is Chinese consumers are extremely open minded towards new innovations. They are very adaptable to change and they're very happy to follow the change. They are very happy to be inspired. And that means that whatever new products or new service they're trying to get promoted into the Chinese market, they're usually, welcome it with an open mind. So I think that is actually a very good mindset. Having that said, it's very important to also understand what matters to Chinese consumers. If you are just selling because it's with international origins, it will not work. And you will not want to put down just quality guarantee, because modern China is not the old China anymore. Because back in, like, let's say 20 or 30 years ago, quality was an issue. But nowadays, with all the, Chinese company that emphasize so much on good quality work, quality is no longer be the most fundamental, thing they're looking at. They will look at something called emotional value, which is something I find it quite interesting, because I find that international brands, they tend to already focus a lot on emotional values of what a brand can bring to one's life, or the symbolic meaning of that. So I think now Chinese consumer are become more accepting towards the emotional value that arise from the brand essence or the brand identity.
It's amazing. And now thinking about foreign markets, what are the things that of head offices or other markets they always get wrong about China? And do you have any good stories to tell about this?
Yes, I have one really good story, and there was this Australian brand. It's a food brand, food and beverage. They did it very well. They have great performance back in Australia because it promotes a very healthy diet. And that is actually a it's called a plant meat, kind of like food products. So when they were looking into entering the Chinese market, they assumed that it would have a huge hit in China because it's so healthy. And of course, Chinese people are quite health conscious as well. But then when we did the study for them, they already kind of set up their office and hired their local team and all that. But when we did a very large study for them, we understand that they might not have that much opportunity in China as how they presumed it was going to be. Because one of the most important things for Chinese people is cuisine. We love eating. We love good food. And we have 1,000 million good food that can made with such a diverse style. We have Cantonese food with dim sum, and then we have the Peking duck. We have the Shanghainese little buns, where it's so tasty and it's so watery. So when people are looking ways to be healthy, there are a million other ways, and they can still get a very good, tasty meals and as a, how they want it. So when the plant meat, like product comes into China, nobody really kind of care about it
Yes.
because the taste was not up to standard. And then the diversity, the integration into different meals is actually very limited. It's completely opposite to how Chinese people perceive cuisine or perceive a good meal. And that becomes extremely challenging. So when our agency provide this like Bible study of the food culture in China, we were kind of convincing enough for them to not enter into China's
Oh my
market,
God.
because yes, that's not the way to enter into the Chinese food market. When you're trying to just say it's a healthy diet eating, it's just like a really healthy for your body, because they will have Chinese medication or Chinese way to be very healthy and to be very slim. So they don't need to suffer with the plant meat based kind of like cuisine as how maybe the Australian people appreciate it. So that was a very interesting study, because we're often trying to invite people to enter into the market. But in this case, we're trying to make sure that they don't lose too much money. So they will cut their loss short. So they will be able to maybe find another market, or maybe find another time, another target group to enter into Chinese
Maybe
market.
another
So
recipe.
this is a very different case as another recipe that maybe can be more complementary to the Chinese way of food culture.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow, I love that. You literally killed the product in China. Of
Yeah, I mean, we support brands to enter into China, but we
course.
also support them to do adequate assessment and evaluation of the market. And at the end of the day, you want them to understand the truth of the market instead of having an illusion about the market and then end up losing a lot of money.
Yes.
Mm. And the product cannot take off. Yes.
Yeah, I'm talking to people from all over the world for this podcast, and everyone has a similar story. Some package strategy that came from another country and just tried to implement in that country or that region, and it simply didn't work because there were a basic thing about the culture that wasn't embedded in the strategy, in the product, or whatever. So I think this is the first lesson that we have to give to global markets before going abroad, like know where you are going to understand if it is a good market or not for your product. It's amazing. Now, how about research technology? What's your experience now, like with tools, platforms for technology today in China?
Our agency applies a lot of psychodynamic, psychological skill in the way that we draft our discussion guides and moderation, as well as putting the report and presenting to our clients. So, in a way that we are very traditional, as in the qualitative field. And of course, DeepSeek is extremely popular now in China, but at the same time, we need to be very mindful of the DeepSeek information
Yes.
because of the data bank that they're using. Some of the information are not very genuine or they're not very authentic. So we need to be very, very mindful. And because in mainland China, we do have an internet restriction, meaning that Google is out of the
Yes.
picture. We cannot use Google. We can only use the Chinese search engine called Baidu. It's equivalent to Google. But at the same time, that means that we cannot use ChatGPT as well if we don't have a VPN. That is a kind of like a firewall to break down the firewall. So we'll be able to use that kind of application. So that sort of give us a very limited choices. And of course, as a local agency who also work with international clients, we always find our way to use ChatGPT, but mostly just for maybe sometimes for translation purposes, as well as maybe just to organize, the document in a way that it's more, let's say, effective or efficient and productive. But then in like the brainstorming and also in the way that we draft our report and put up, integrate with all our observation and analysis, we are still doing that in a very traditional way by using a lot of brainstorming after the research and then talk, have like a group discussion with all the moderators and get everyone's input and then have like a, whiteboard and all that. That said, while we were doing moderation, we'll be using a lot of technology like our phones because live streaming now is becoming extremely popular in China, meaning that a lot of clients, even though they may not be able to visit the home with us in person, they would like to actually view it through like either Zoom or we call Tencent meeting. So that kind of live streaming services becomes extremely common and popular when we do our in-home research or focus group. So clients from different locations, they will be able to listen in and then start to ask questions, with our technology. And one of the things that we cannot ignore when company trying to enter into China's market is to have a WeChat. I'm not sure if you ever heard about this app.
No, explain,
It's
please.
equivalent to Yes, it's equivalent to WhatsApp.
Yeah.
It's very similar to WhatsApp, but then it's much more functional in some way compared to WhatsApp because on WeChat we can pay and then we have different kind of group chats. And then actually a lot of people are using it for work. So they will have
Okay.
the work group chats and then they can send files, they can send videos, they can send images, and then they will have a different way to edit all this information and all that. So a lot of Chinese business people, they tend to use WeChat as their primary tool to communicate with each other. And then different apps that is very specific to Chinese market called Ding Ding or Feishu. So they're like the teams, but Chinese version. They're all conducted in Chinese, but they also have the English version. From what I have observed, the English translation is not that perfect just yet. Some of the wording can be a bit strange to like international users. But those are the few apps that are very, very popular with, local companies and enterprise when they want to collaborate with other people. So our international clients who visit China all the time, they will always have, WeChat.
From the platforms that exist now and then that can work in China, what do you think is missing for you to use more in research or for your type of research? What do you wish they had that would help you more?
I think when you were talking about platform, it really depends because with our work, especially when it comes to psychology, in-person session is most valuable because you can tell a lot more about these, for example, the participants' lifestyle, how they present themselves in real person. You can do a lot of assessment with the nonverbal cues. And sometimes by being in the same room with them, you're already getting this feeling whether or not they're sharing something genuine about their insights. Okay. So in some way, ideally, we want to see them in person. But then, because of the pandemic, we learned how to use these online platforms and stuff. So what I find that with qualitative research, it would be great if we can have platform that can actually provide a bit more about these persons, like a lifestyle, even though we are actually just having this face-to-face online session.
Yeah,
But at the moment, if you ask me to imagine what kind of scenario, it's a little bit difficult. But then I think because sometimes we will ask them to take a video with their phone to document their day. So we will be able to understand how they operate, how they live on their daily basis. But by using the phone, maybe it's a little bit difficult. And Xiaomi, Xiaomi, the
yes.
China brand, the technology brand. And now they come up with glasses with the
Oh,
little
yes.
video. So they will be able to actually record it. And then they will send the data onto the cloud and then we'll be able to download it. So meaning that they can actually wear the glasses, but without intentionally filming parts of their homes.
Yes.
So I think in that way, the whole pre-filming system will become much more natural and spontaneous.
Oh, yes.
But that's all I can think of.
So it's, how do you, because you talked about the technology for interviewing, do you use any technology afterwards, like for data summarization or anything? You do like you analyze things that, like reading stuff and watching the videos. How do you do it? Or do you use any technology for any of the subsequent steps?
Mm. With the voice recording, we do transcriptions.
Okay.
And meaning that we just transcribe the interview. But then for us and also for the client, they prefer the raw material. Because before and after the interview, it tells a lot about these consumers' habits, whether or not they come on time, if they're late, and how they turn on their camera. And then, when we enter into their home, how they welcome us, we start filming from the moment we open the door. So we're trying to replicate as much as the real human interaction. So with the AI technology, it's usually just for translation and transcription.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how we use it. And also with our client, they prefer to actually look at the raw material because they don't want to have anything that has been processed except the report.
Yeah.
So don't underestimate that our Chinese client, especially our Chinese client, they're extremely hands-on.
Yes, I can see that because
Yes.
most clients I ever dealt with in my agency, like, were really like, just come with the thing ready. Just let me know what I need to know. Don't bring like 300 pages reports for me to read or hours of videos for me to watch. I want what you
Mm,
extracted. But you know what? some of the times when we would give the summary, like our summary, they would come back saying,
Mm.
okay, but it's not complete enough. It doesn't have all the information that we need. And we feel that you don't understand what we needed. So in the end of the day,
Mm.
it's good to have like very hands-on clients.
Yes, yes. And because like I deal with international client and also Chinese client, I find that the Chinese clients, because they are not very familiar with marketing or market research, are still very, I wouldn't say very new, but it's still kind of like a new idea and a concept in China. So they are taking this opportunity to learn as much as possible, and they
Mhm.
don't want to miss out every single details. And they have their leadership that they need to report to. And usually the Chinese leader can ask so many questions that is even, outside of the guideline and all that. So, as the colleagues or the teams that we collaborate with, they often need to be extremely prepared. Whereas I think compared to the Western companies, because they're very familiar with the process and they're very experienced and seasoned process, they have a lot more trust and confidence in what can be produced. And with the clients that we have been talking with, they're very clear with the objective, what we need and what we don't need. And like you said, they want something more condensed, not big reports. And this is a very big contrast compared to Chinese clients, because Chinese clients prefer huge reports. So they will be able to go back and read it again in more details. And, one report they will share with different departments. So they're trying to make the best out of these reports. So these are some of the differentiation I noticed when I work with a different type of clients. And I think that just by doing that is extremely interesting to see that, different mindset will have different outcomes and will have different kind of strategies.
It's amazing. Now, what
Mm.
about AI? How do you see, because you talked about transcription, translation, and the barriers for some of the popular around the world tools to enter in China. But how do you see it changing the landscape of research and insights in the future? Do you have any perspective about how it's going to work or how it's going to enter the Chinese market more strongly?
I can share a little example. It was shared by one of my clients. He moved from one large company to another large company. And he was very familiar with our qualitative research work, meaning that he always intended to introduce our team to the new company, the new leadership. But then the new leadership has been actually invested a lot of energy and work and money into AI researching. So the reason why he talked to me was because it was very tormenting for him. That with the AI work, it was fast, but then it was very shallow, meaning that the discussion guide was very generic. And then when they hired the moderator to follow the discussion guide and ask questions, the results always end up very similar to one another. Okay. But he was just saying that he say qualitative research conducted by human will never be able to replace by AI. That's one of the reasons he talked to me, because he said that from his own real experience, the first-hand experience, he has observed so many qualitative research with great moderators. And now by using AI and then have discussion guide and then hire junior moderator to do it, it's cheaper, but then he feels that the cost that need to be paid will be bigger in the long run. Because so far, no interesting insight has been come out of that. But I would say that this is in a very primary stage. Maybe in the long run, there will be a lot more advanced and very adequate application to actually support AI to come up with much more useful qualitative tools. But what my concern is, what happened to our junior researcher? How are we going to train them with real experience? If all the things are done by AI or, by this like a perfect echo chamber system, where is this collective unconsciousness that we value so much as human being? Mm. And what about the imperfection in our feedback and also in our reports?
Yes.
And also the love and hate relationship that has been reflected with the human interaction. And I think all those elements, they are actually the beauty of consumer psychology because it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I
Yes.
guess. Go ahead.
Yes. And that is why, to me, my biggest concern is what will happen to our junior researcher
Yes.
when they first step into the industry and they need a series of interviews that they can actually train up their interpersonal skill and moderation skill. But if everything is replaced by AI, what will happen to them? So this has always been on my mind, and it has been a very frequently discussed topic with my other colleagues too.
Yes, I imagine that because at some point I feel that we are lucky. Like as you have 20 years experience. I also have more than 20 years experience in research. So I've been through the manual process, like all manual process, then online research for service only. And then the pandemic brought the qualitative online tools like to the top of the list. But we had the time to learn and prepare through time. Like we did all the manual
Mm,
stuff before getting to the automation. What I feel when I see results like automated sounds or even synthetic respondents and things like that, what I feel is I can judge them better because I know what they could be. But when
mm,
I would expect that someone that hasn't seen this like previous 15 years and just enters the field with AI and all this technology, they don't understand the process. And I'm not sure if they ever are going to understand and if they are going to be able to criticize the work of AI. So I'm
mm,
with you with the concern. I think there is a lot to be thought about. And I think the leaders in the industry will need to be aware of this and aware of how they are treating their junior resources to be able to really do valuable work for them. It's not just about pressing a button and changing from one tool to the other, but how they are judging the deliverables of those tools.
mm, mm. I totally agree with you, Cynthia. I think it's very important for us to find the way that they can work complementary with each other. Meaning that, for one, the junior researcher will have this real experience, not just to interact and moderate other people. On the other hand, they will be able to have these evaluation skills to assess what is the what is the healthy information, what is real about this information. Because now with AI, everything can be fake too.
Yes, it's
Right?
true.
So yes, and also, the challenge of echo chamber and then the algorithm, when they actually push you into one corner and feed you with just very singular information, that can be very challenging too. So all the global strategy from different brands can end up with the same strategy because of the echo chamber effect. So in some way that I'm still feeling very grateful that even though some of our clients they use heavily on the TikTok algorithm
Yeah.
because they have data analysis, give you the words and the percentage and all that, but they will still come back to us and ask, but why?
Yes.
What does that mean by this and that? And I mean, what's these kind of like very subtle differences between different segmentation? Can you please, apply your psychological understanding and skill to support us to differentiate? Even those subtle differences make a huge impact. So then we still have clients that recognize that there's just so much can be done with the algorithm and AI. So they will still want that human gut feeling
It's
in
amazing.
their strategy work. Yes, yes. We are very fortunate to have those kind of
Yes, for
clients.
sure. Now, what's the coolest thing about AI that you heard of or you used or you are curious about trying out? Is there anything that you're like, oh, I wish I could see this in action, or I'm curious to see how it works?
I have a lot of curiosity about AI, but at the moment, regarding research, I would say not much. But then I'm still kind of like thinking that if there is an AI application that will be able to use in China, I'm talking about mainland
Yeah.
China, how would that how would that adapt it to the Chinese language model, the large language model?
Yes.
Because we have so many different dialects, and because our internet language change all the time. We have sounds like we have one sound, one word. The sounds can actually mean thousand different words, and it has a thousand different meanings. So how can it recognize and differentiate, and also supporting with the domestic linguistic culture, and then supporting the researcher to better understand what it really means to be really on top of things. So I think I'm very interested in those kind of like LLMs specifically for China, and then adapting with our idioms and also our slangs and our dialects. How would be how would that look like? I'm very curious about that.
Well, this is a big
Yes.
shout out for the developers to start working on something that really works for you.
Yeah, and also one of the things that, in our algorithm, there are some words that are just forbidden.
Yes.
Then how the international developer will be able to find a way to work around it instead of just being forbidden, and that we will never be able to look at the information for how it is.
Yes.
Mm. So I think that's one of the key questions that has always been on our mind when it comes to AI and algorithm and then the large language models.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Now, to end this interview, I'm learning a lot about China. It's wonderful. What's your favorite research methodology, Sami?
Oh, yes, I love the psychological one. The methodology that we have applied in our work is really one of my favorite because it's not just for work. This kind of methodology I apply also to my clinical work and also my day-to-day interaction with people and to situation as well. So it feels very natural and very useful. It's very psychodynamic, meaning that we are looking at the human tension, not just the human relational tension, but we're also looking at the psychic tension.
Could
When you
you
have the love,
explain a
you will have
bit?
the hate.
Yeah.
Yes, and when you have the love, you will always have the hate and also the indifference. So when you have the desire, you will always have the hope, and then you also have the fear. So we are really trying to understand all these very primary, at the same time fundamental emotion in our work when we are drafting our discussion guide, talking to our participants, respondents, and also dealing with our clients and then coming with the report. We are always looking at these different kind of dimensions and dynamic, especially in China, because we are very relational culture. People really emphasize on the connection with each other. No man is an island really applies to here. So everything is interconnected. So when we are looking at the consumer's lifestyle and their value, it's always kind of tied back to the social change, the culture change, and also the global change. So it's all intertwined. So when we apply this kind of methodology, so we are not just looking at the micro, but we are also looking at the macro. So always zoom in and out with the way that we do our analysis and our understanding, observation, and also our interpretations. So that's why I really love like our methodology. And then I just wish that a lot more people can be using it. So a lot of good outcomes and finding will come out of it.
So I'm very curious to see it in action
Yes.
because I really love methodologies that use psychology as a beginning point and also on the analysis point. I worked in qualitative research so many years with psychologists and sociologists as well. And I know the importance of their eyes when looking through results or even when tailoring how we are going to get the responses. Because I don't feel qualitative research is asking questions and getting responses. It's much more than
Mm,
that. It's
mm,
getting why people respond like this. It's deeper than just what they say, but
mm,
why they say that. So I'm really
mm,
curious about that. I will talk to you about that. And talking about market research trends, what would you say is the
mm.
most exciting trend nowadays?
In China, I'm just talking about in
Yes.
Chinese
Yeah.
market. Yes, I briefly touch on the concept of emotional value. Everybody talked about it, but I think there are different facets that really reflect the importance of emotional value. And that will be kind of reflecting in our aged care business. Okay, it's now really booming, and also pet industry. And then we call our pets fur babies.
Yes.
Yes, and then they are actually in these like little prams, and then they're like the princess or the prince at home. They're really more than a family member in the Chinese household because we are having these birth rate declines,
Yeah.
and then less and less people are willing to start their family. So I think the emotional value really brings out different kind of social phenomenon within the Chinese society. But then at the end of the day, it's really about bring the focus back to the human emotion. And that has been heavily discussed in almost all the industries. And when we do research, all the clients are really focusing on the emotional side of things. What is the emotional value we can provide through our product and services to our Chinese consumer? To what extent? To what kind of scenarios? And how we can do better with this area.
Yeah.
So I think this is very specific to China right now.
Amazing. What would be a piece of advice you would give for someone starting their research career today?
I would say be as humane as possible.
Yes.
And one of the thing is to always value and protect our curiosity. We don't just rely on the moderation, the interview to shape our moderation skill. Just by having that curiosity and observe on a daily basis is actually one of the most important way to shape our skills about situation, about a person, about how they say things. So I often encourage the junior in our team to go out in a park or in a shopping mall, sit there with your cappuccino, whatever, just observe. And then just write down whatever you find it very interesting and very different. So I think sometimes training can be just free and very accessible. You just need to have the heart to do it.
Thank you so much, Sammy. It was amazing to learn about those things and those characteristics. And I loved your piece of advice for new researchers. Yes, I think it's about what you want to do more than what is available for you to do, right? So I would
Yes.
like to thank you so much and thank everyone listening to the Insights from Elsewhere podcast. Today, we talked to Sami Wong. She's the founder of 3Drips Psychology Research and Consultancy, and she's based in Beijing, China. She brought a lot of challenges and opportunities talking about the cultural nuances, the language and dialect differences within China that affect not just the field of research, but also how other companies enter the market. And she also challenged some of the developers to develop some AI that will actually reflect the people in China in all of their unique nuances and cultural aspects and dialects. So I think it's a big shout out there. Thank you very much for joining us today, Sammy. It was a pleasure to talk to you and to learn so much from you. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes soon. And if you know someone that would have great stories to share with us for the Insights from Elsewhere podcast, please send us an email with your recommendation. Subscribe to Insight platforms on our website to get weekly updates on new events, webinars, podcasts, ebooks, etc., straight into your mailbox. Thank you very much for listening today. Thank you again, Sami, for being with me today, and see you all in the next episode.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. I really enjoy our discussion and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sami, and bye bye.
Bye.